everybody, it's Sean Lemansky, and myself and Sean Petrosky are going to talk to you tonight about the customer and the service. Hey, Sean, how are you?
Good. How you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty well. I think I'm coming down with something. I'm hoping I can avoid getting worse, but I'm thinking that I'm going downhill quick.
I'm sorry to hear that. You gotta get some rest and some OJ.
Yeah, definitely. I just had a delicious fresh orange. How are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. I've been all right. You know, nothing major. Crystal's been holding up good too, so we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I've been lucky so far. I haven't been sick since April. So tonight on the customer and the service, we have two topics. The first topic that I wanted to discuss with Sean was the idea of one-on-one as opposed to one-to-many training, teaching, and consulting. And a little bit later on, Sean has a story to tell. It's going to be story time. About the United States Postal Service. Is that correct, Sean?
Yeah, it's just. I know we've talked about them a million times on the show, but this is just another example of how they are the worst at everything. And I just want to get it out there that this is what's going on. So
it sounds good. I can't wait to hear it. So I recently have been interacting with professional consultants, teachers, and trainers, mostly because of my recent involvement with a couple core arts groups in Trenton, which Sean and I were just talking about before the show. And I've met these really interesting people, and they are following the trend of people moving away from group-based services, where, you know, as Sean and I are part of an enterprise organization, an academic organization, to a much more individualized or small group set of services. And one particular example is my friend David, who I just met for the second time today. And today we came together to talk about his potential to come to talk in one of my seminars about electronics in teaching. And that aside, his typical work is to teach young children, like ages 8 and up, about how to use Arduino and other microprocessors. And I have struggled a bit with this because my son, who happens to be 8 years old, is very excited whenever I talk about the Arduino. We go to Radio Shack and we pick up parts and stuff, and I've been learning, but I feel like since I'm struggling with it, I am assuming that he would struggle with it, and I don't want to start taking him down a path of understanding about electronics when I have a limited understanding myself. So I was hoping that I would run into somebody who offered this kind of service, sort of a one-on-one or small group classes, sort of like karate lessons or guitar lessons or any other things that you can think of, extracurricular activities, but about electronics. And I didn't think such a thing existed, but I felt like there was a gap, there was a need. And here comes David. And it looks like he may provide that service for me. And so I wanted to talk a bit about this idea of providing a service that is necessary one-on-one on an individual basis. It's part of the reason that you and I are part of an enterprise is because, quite honestly, being an individual consultant as your main source of income is pretty difficult. It's kind of hard to pay the bills when you don't have a steady stream of clients. And also, you know, when you're part of an enterprise, there are more costs and overhead, but there's also a lot of support. If there's something that I can't do, I might call Sean and say, Sean, there's something that somebody's asking for that really is not part of my expertise. Is there any way that you could help out? And I guess I could do that as a consultant too, and often I do. But it's a much more formalized structure in an enterprise right? Where you have this sort of built-in thing. So I wonder if you, Sean, have ever had any experiences with this one-on-one kind of training or teaching. You know, did you ever take guitar lessons or piano lessons? Did you ever do anything where you were learning or getting tutored with an individual? And what was your experience with it?
Yeah, well, I have a very deep background in music. From fourth grade all the way through my senior year of high school, I played alto saxophone, baritone saxophone, and I taught myself trombone junior and senior year of high school. And I also, from I think 8th grade through sophomore year of college, I also took piano lessons as well. So, my music instruction when I was not in a band environment was typically one-on-one. And then all of my piano instruction was one-on-one. I had 2 different piano teachers. And so I'm very familiar with the concept that you're speaking of. It's been a large part of my life learning that way. I even actually learned baseball for a period of time. I had some difficulty during my baseball years with hitting, and my father took me to a hitting specialist, and we worked one-on-one, and he drastically changed my ability to consistently hit baseballs. So, and then not to mention also golf too. I've taken a lot of one-on-one golf lessons when I was in high school. Not so much anymore, but I definitely have been involved in that world and learned one-on-one.
And so it sounds like you had a pretty positive experience too, that your needs were often met.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where, with one of my piano teachers where I kind of hit a point where I realized like that she wasn't the right teacher for me anymore, and she also came to that realization, and she referred me to a guy that basically specialized in piano student burnouts, as he liked to call them, and he totally like reinvigorated my interest in piano and playing piano. But for the most part, every other one-on-one experience I've had was extremely positive. The golf instruction was beneficial. The baseball instruction was beneficial. My other music instructions were good too. So, yeah, I would say that definitely, for the most part, everything was good. Was very positive.
Well, what this idea has sparked for me is the idea that first and foremost, my personal and sort of working brand is the idea that I want to help people and help people with whatever skills I have, whether they be about creativity or whether they be about technology or whether they be about whatever. It's part of the reason why we do this podcast, is so that we can sort of spread the idea that if there's some way that I can help you, I want to help you. And it makes me think of the cliche of sort of like a jack of all trades, this idea of somebody who just puts out a shingle and says, need help, or whatever. But I think that in today's age, there are so many niche ideas that you can apply yourself to, that if you have that core idea of I want to help you and you have ability, then why not? If you have a standard rate and you have a list of things that you're able to do, why wouldn't you be able to apply yourself in that way and just be able to manage your clients like any other consultant?
Well, I think that a lot of people don't have that kind of mentality, which is unfortunate. And I'm trying to think of
people on the customer side or people on the vendor side.
On the vendor side, I think I look at some a lot of like some. I don't want to single out like exercise because or like meditation or yoga, but I feel like, especially in the area of meditation, I feel like a lot of those areas are kind of done in group settings, where I think it's important for something as personal as that to be done on an individual level. And I think we're kind of moving in a direction. I mean, especially in the fitness industry, personal trainers have always been present there, and I don't have any data to back this up, but I think that I feel like you hear a lot of people are in that field of I'm a personal trainer as a career. And so I would say then that the fitness industry is definitely catching on to that philosophy. But I feel like there's so many other service industries that need to take on that.
It's so funny that you say that because I spent a brief time getting familiar with a networking group called Networking and More in the Princeton area. And in that group, there were two individuals who had this kind of approach, and I hadn't really associated them with the conversation until just now. There was one that was a personal chef, which I always thought was a very interesting way of thinking. She also did catering, but she was a personal chef, and I love that idea that somebody would come in and make a series of meals, or even just a special meal, in order to affect the nutrition, or affect the knowledge, or affect the health of somebody, or just the enjoyment of food. If somebody doesn't know how to cook and they don't necessarily want to go out to a restaurant, but rather have a really special meal at home, that would be a great solution. And there was another person in that group who was a personal trainer, but not necessarily affiliated in the same way so many other personal trainers are with a gym or a series of gyms, but rather just an independent individual trainer who would come, I guess, during your gym time or in their own facility and help you to achieve whatever goals you wanted to. And there's somebody else who's sort of a somebody to help you to achieve your emotional goals and your other goals like that. And I guess that my exposure to these ideas, which are not new ideas, but it just seems like there's more and more of this, made me think, well, I guess if I had to choose one core set of skills to emphasize, it might be technology, or it might be design, or it might be whatever. But I don't think of myself as just a technologist or just a designer or just anything. I don't think you probably do either. You think of yourself as a collection of skills that would make you a great asset on a project of many different kinds, that you would be able to be applied in order to lead in some cases, in order to design in other cases, in order to help with the way that a space is organized, or there are all kinds of these interesting skills that we have. But I actually ran into this issue a little bit with this group because they had a clause in their charter that said that no two people in the group could do the same task. And so it was a little bit of a struggle. I'm not a part of the group anymore. I didn't really join very officially. But part of my resistance was I had to choose one way in which to present myself, because that was the only way that I would be allowed in the group. In other words, not stepping on somebody else's toes. I couldn't say that I was a technologist because there was already a technologist in the group. I couldn't say that I was a branding specialist because there was already somebody who managed brand. I had to choose graphic design because there were no other graphic designers in the group, even though there were like 10 people in there who worked with graphics in their, there was like a sign shop there. Of course they would be able to do graphics. So it really comes down to an individual mix of what you are and how you can apply yourself to a particular project. I just think it's an interesting and difficult concept as time is changing, and as we all are able to brand ourselves in lots of different ways on lots of different platforms. It's like, do you choose one? Do you just focus on some particular skill, or do you offer everything that you do? And for me, it comes down to my business card. When I hand my business card to somebody, I have a Princeton card and I have a personal consulting card. On my personal consulting card, I don't say that I just do graphic design or that I just do technology. I list all the skills that I've acquired over a long period of time, whether it be organizational leadership or whether it be, I guess if I hand that card to somebody, they might say, this just seems like, sort of organizational vomit. There's so much going on here. How do I know what you're supposed to do? And my answer, if we even have that conversation, is I do a little bit of everything. What is it that you need done?
I'm gonna coin a term right now for the type of people that we are. What you're talking about, and what I know. I know I'm also kind of in a similar space as you. We're not technologists. We're solutionists.
Solutionists. I like it. And there's a similar term from Gartner. Do you know the term I'm going to say?
No, I don't. I don't subscribe to anything that Gartner says.
Well, Gartner has this thing in technology specifically that is called a versatilist. And it talks about somebody, there used to be a guy who was a Mac guy, and there used to be a girl who was a printer girl. And there was, whatever, in your office you had all these individual skills. And if you had a problem with your printer, you would go to, we saw this at our former institution.
Mm-hmm.
But there has been a move, especially in enterprise technology support, towards versatilism, where everybody knows a little bit about everything. Everybody knows a little bit of programming. Everybody knows a little bit about how to handle printers. Everybody knows a little bit about web design. Everybody knows a little bit about graphic design. Everybody knows Office. Everybody knows, But I think that this idea can be expanded to all of the skills that you acquire in your lifetime. In other words, why should I be limited to just technology, or why should I be limited to just visual skills if I have other things to offer that could be useful for somebody? And your idea of solutionist is I think that's a beautiful term to represent that idea.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about like how we conduct ourselves at work and in our personal lives, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're solving problems. We're presenting solutions. They might not necessarily always have to do with educational technology or traditional kind of tech support models. But, people present problems to us, and that may include a solution that is a website. It may include a solution that requires us to make a short film that's shown on a website. There's maybe you have to create a sculpture that you will then photograph that is then exhibited on a website. There's all kinds of different things that we bring to the table, and those are just another different solution that we can use to help solve the overall problem.
Well, I think that it also speaks a little bit about a philosophy that I think that we subscribe to, which is pro-solution. In other words, I think that in this former model of silos, where one person knew one thing and another person knew another thing, and there wasn't a lot of cross communication because that endangered that silo. You might go to the printer person and say, oh, and can you handle the website? And they'd say, oh, no, that's Jim, or whatever. And even if the printer person was able to do a website, they would have been probably instructed at one point to say, no, I don't want to step on that person's toes, even though it's going to make you as the customer do more work, footwork, going between these different people. It's the way we do things here, and so therefore, right? Whereas this solutionist point of view and philosophy, I think, speaks to how much of this can I do for you without having to go to somebody else, because they probably are working on a different project, and I may need to go to them and I may consult with them, but I don't need to bother you with that. I just want to give you a solution.
Well, I would say we should coin that belief, that school of thought, as solutionism, and a practicer of solutionism is a solutionist.
Well, I'm going to write that down right now, and I think that we should write a manifesto of solutionism.
We should. I think we've really we've opened a new door tonight. And I think, I think for a while, you and I and people like Shane Smith and Doug Rosso and Matt Parker and, John Zarillo and John Green and all these people that we, Ron Fitzwater, Mike Langley, Dave Weiss, the list goes on and on. These are all people that subscribe to the school of thought that we are preaching week in and week out. And it's nice to finally be able to kind of brand it and to be able to now package it in an easily digestible form that can be translated not just to IT, but to all other realms of service as we talk about week in and week out.
Well, I promise you that I will open up a document tonight, and I will share it with you with giving you editing rights. And the title will be Manifesto of Solutionism, and we will begin drafting what this means and why it's important and how people can subscribe to it.
We should also come up with like some sort of like badge that people can use like as a Twitter avatar or a Facebook cover photo or something, to say like, I'm a solutionist. I subscribe to solutionism. Because I feel like this is something that, I feel like more and more people that I hear that listen to our show, they get it. They got it before they started to listen to the show, and to hear us talk about it, it was like, oh, finally, there's somebody else. And then there's people that really never thought about it, and listening to our show now, they're getting a part of it. So to be able to stand up and say, hey, listen, solutionism is the future. I'm a part of that. I think would be like a really big deal to see maybe how far our idea of service really goes.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I think that looking back on many of our topics, they speak to, on a simple level, the idea of customer service, but in a much larger sense, speak to this idea of solutionism. If we talk about the way that my electronic cigarette vendor goes through the extra trouble to let me know exactly where the order is being processed, that's an example of solutionism. If we talk about the way in which I get excellent treatment when I am at Winbury's, that's an example of solutionism. It's not as though anybody in those situations says, well, that's not really me, you have to go to them. Or, that's not really my task, you probably have to talk to Jim. Poor Jim, I keep referring to Jim as though Jim's the other guy. But this idea that we will help you in the most complete way that we can, in as many ways as we can. And it's so funny, like you talk about this badge idea, and immediately, I get really excited because I happen to be a visual person and would list that as one of my skills. Imagine if you made a resume or a CV from a solutionist standpoint. In other words, what have I accomplished and what could I potentially offer you from my experience in history?
Right, like you instead of a resume being like a description of the jobs that you've had and the responsibilities of the jobs, the solutionist or solutionism resume would be a list of problems that you've solved and how you solved them.
Beautiful. I really love that. I really love that. Well, that's amazing. That's quite a breakthrough. I love that. Good job, Sean.
Thank you.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't have much else to say about this idea of individual consulting, but the idea that you could have a solutionist be sort of an omni consultant is a very interesting idea. And I feel like I want to go to moo.com and get some new business cards right now.
Well, I think we need to run with that, and big time. You know what I mean? And because I feel like we've been looking for a catalyst to carry the word, and I think solutionism is the way to do it. And
we ought to see if solutionism.com is available.
Well, I'm going to look for it right now.
All right, well, why don't you do that? Maybe you can order that from the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah, let's talk about them, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
All right, so I'm gonna get a little multimedia on your ass here.
All right, cool.
Hold on, let me get this right. So there is a game that's really big with children right now called Skylanders, and what you're looking at right now is a figure in the Skylanders series. His name is Thumpback.
Okay.
And basically, since the Skylanders Giants game came out this fall, everybody has waited with bated breath for Thumpback to be released because apparently I'm not the only one that thinks a whale that uses a giant anchor as a weapon is the coolest thing ever.
Oh, it
So,
is clearly the coolest thing ever.
so finally, Thumpback was made available on the GameStop website last week for the normal price of $14.99. Normally, you could get it very easily on Amazon for like $150 because the availability of it was so low. So the first day that they were available, I went ahead and ordered my Thumpback from GameStop.com, just as I've done. I've ordered other things from GameStop, no problem. And I picked the cheapest shipping, which was like $2. And it was this thing called UPS Mail Innovations Shipment. And what that means is that UPS picks up the package, processes the transportation, and then hands it off to the United States Postal Service to do what they call a last mile delivery, basically taking it from the post office to the address that the package is supposed to be delivered to. But UPS takes it from the sender, puts it on their plane or trucks to get it to the post office, and then the post office does the rest. So my Thumpback was supposed to arrive today, and let me show you another graphic. And if you take a look now, here is my shipment information this is at this afternoon. You can see that the package was shipped via UPS on the 22nd of January, and it'll finally arrive for post office delivery on the 25th of January. And then if you go up, you'll see that, it went from Logan Township, New Jersey to Eatontown to Trenton, New Jersey on January 25th at 7:10 p.m. If you take a look at the next day, it went from Trenton, New Jersey, which is the next town over from Ewing, to Capitol Heights, Maryland, the next day at 10:10 p.m., to today, Monday, January 28th at 9:53 p.m., to being in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I called GameStop and I said, listen, did you maybe give me the wrong tracking number? Did you maybe give me the wrong, order number? What's going on? They looked up all the information. They said, no, sir, that's 100% right. And the woman on the other hand said, I know this is strange. The package is supposed to be delivered today. She said, but we've seen this happen sometimes with the post office. So here you go. I could have had this package Friday or Saturday because that's where it was in Trenton on Friday. And here it is Monday the 28th, and it is now in North Carolina because the post office doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, that's odd. I've never seen that particular problem, but obviously, there's the tail of the tape right there.
And like I said, the GameStop representative I spoke with said that this is something that they've seen happen before. It's not common, she said, but it's something that they've seen, and it's now probably going to take another 2 to 3 days for my package to go from North Carolina back to New Jersey whenever they figure out that it doesn't belong in North Carolina.
So, have you devised any ways in which you're going to make the post office aware of their issue?
Well, I tweeted about it today to the post office Twitter account. I doubt that's going to do anything. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll go see where it ends up tomorrow. If it starts making its way back to New Jersey tomorrow, then I guess I'll just wait it out. But if they see that it's going further away from me, then I will call them and be like, you guys are like morons. But I don't know. It's just, I just am so irritated by them, and they can't do anything right.
Did you? I noticed that usually when you run into one of these customer service issues, that you rely on Twitter almost singly. Is there any reason why you don't also use Facebook or other social networks in order to make your complaint heard?
Well, I mean, I haven't ever used Facebook in the past, and I bet if I went to the United States Postal Service Facebook page, something tells me there's not much customer service going on there. Just as before I tweeted at the Postal Service, I noticed that there's no customer service going on their Twitter page either.
Hmm.
So really, I just wanted to kind of associate my problem with a handle in case somebody is actually reading replies. Um, Really, the only method, the avenue that a customer has with the Postal Service is to call their 800 number, which is like, you might as well be speaking to a wall. But it is what it is. And, they're $4 billion in debt or whatever, and they're talking about dropping Saturday delivery. And you wonder why, because you have things like this going on. And I guarantee you, if this package actually had been sent UPS or FedEx the entire way, that this would not have happened at all.
Interesting. Well, it's sad. I mean, I have had a lot of luck with the U.S. Postal Service. I don't personally have any stories of complaint. Although right now, I have a package that's on its way, three packages that are on their way, and I had expected to see them by now. I think maybe the weather might be having an effect. I don't know.
It's possible, but I don't know.
Are they solutionists, on?
No, and that's the thing. Like going back to that idea, if you think about the organizations we've talked about that are, not examples of solutionism, there are examples of siloism. You know what I mean? They're organizations, oh, well, that's not my area. Let me transfer you to the person whose area it is. Or, oh, that's not ours. If I called UPS today, they'd be, well, unfortunately, this is being handled at this point by the Postal Service, so you need to speak to them. And I guarantee you that if I got any sort of communication from the Postal Service, they would probably just be passing the buck endlessly, down the line of, okay, well, you got to call. Like I had a problem with pickup recently. I was trying to send some priority packages, very heavy priority packages, and I scheduled free pickup. And it took them 4 days to actually get the pickup information correct. And the only way I got it rectified was I called the 800 number, who then told me I had to call the actual post office, and there's no number listed for the post office, so I had to call the 800 number again to get the post office phone number. Then I had to call my local post office, didn't get anybody to answer the phone, and then finally one morning the phone was busy for 4 hours straight, and somebody then did finally answer. And when I got somebody on the phone, then somebody picked the package up in 10 minutes. But, if they were subscribing to solutionism, that first person that I spoke to would have done everything that they could to maybe put me on hold, call the post office facility for me, and make that connection. Never happens. And I know there's organizations that do that. I know that when I've called Verizon Wireless with problems or T-Mobile with problems, they always make sure to make that connection for me, whereas they put me on hold, get the person for me, and then make that introduction and hand me off. Or they'll call somebody on my behalf, solve the problem, and come back to me. That's being a solutionist. This is not an example of that.
No, I don't think so. Um, I was thinking that there were a couple people who I have interacted with recently that I just wanted to give a shout out to, mostly because of their solutionist ways. Um, First, I wanted to say thank you to the organizers of the Trenton Punk Rock Flea Market that happened over the weekend. It was uber crowded, and it was at Artworks Trenton, which is right across from the DMV in Trenton and Sean and I were just talking about how it's sort of an indicator of a surge in interest in the sort of an underground scene having to do with art and music and creativity that is just delicious. I mean, there's something really beautiful about it, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And it's also an extension of their great success with Art All Night and other efforts that they have been putting forth. I also spent some time in Panera today, which we've talked about in the past. Panera in Princeton on Nassau, and ran into the manager who I have given a shout out to here before, and he gave me a nice firm handshake and said hello, took time out of a very busy line to greet me properly, and he didn't have to do that. And he always does. He's a really great guy, and that whole crew there is fantastic. And I also spent some time at Princeton Public Library today, one of my favorite places in the world. A great example of what a a contemporary library should be, in my opinion. They are doing it right. Anybody you want to thank this week, Sean?
Sadly, no.
That is sad.
It is. I haven't really experienced any good service, anything special. It's been pretty uneventful in that way. So.
Oh, also, I was at Alchemist and Barrister recently, and as usual, delicious food, good service, fun atmosphere. Everybody was very attentive service-wise. I mean, I don't know if I could say it was up to Winbury standards, but it was very nice.
Well, I'm happy to hear that.
Any parting words? Any other ideas?
Solutionism.
Solutionism.
More to come.
More to come. Thank you so much, Sean. I'm looking forward to talking to you again in person and via Hangout.
Absolutely.
I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Good night.
Bye.